Good afternoon, everybody. Dr. Kala, ma'am, shall we start after the introduction?
Sure, ma'am. We can start.
Okay. This session will be handled by Dr. N. Kala, currently working as an assistant professor and director in charge for cyber forensics and information security, University of Madras, Chennai, India, and have participated in several conferences, workshops, seminars, presented papers in conferences, and published many articles in the journals. From February 2008 to 2014, she was the digital forensic examiner and the researcher. During that time, she conducted many digital forensic examinations, data retrieval analysis, and presented expert witnesses in courts. From 1991 to February 2008, she was a scientific officer in State Forensic Sciences Department, Tamil Nadu. She is having a qualification of Doctor of Philosophy, Cyber Forensics, University of Madras, Chennai, India, Master of Science in Forensic Sciences, University of Madras, Chennai, India, Postgraduate Diploma in Cyber Crimes and Information Security, Ethical Hacking, Sandsbound Solutions Private Limited, The Networking School, Chennai. Honors Diploma in Network Centered Curriculum, NIIT, Chennai. Bachelors of Science in Chemistry, University of Madras, Chennai. She has actually the professional associations with member of International Institute of Certified Forensics Professionals, International Digital Forensic Research, member of Digital Security Council of India, member of Indian Society of Criminology. She has done many projects and even she has got many national awards, tracking a Best Scientific Paper Award in Computer Forensics field for a paper in 2009, tracking the device trials in digital investigation in All India Forensic Science Conference. In 2009, the same conference which is held in 2010 at Maharashtra, many articles published in digital forensic magazines in UK titled Databases Treasure Trove of Digital Forensics Part 1 and Part 2 in November 2014 and February 2015. And she also organized many special lectures on cyber security, virtualization seminar delivered by Mr. Mohan Raj, HP Bangalore, IT Act and Cyber Law by Nikshit, Cyber Forensics by Santosh. She has organized many special programs also, and she has organized a cyber security awareness program in 2015, which was actually a landmark program, first of its kind in India. And she has organized many workshops, many FDPs on information security and cyber crimes, that is challenges in digital forensics and crime scene management, systematic approach in digital forensics, recent trends in digital forensics, electronic crime scene management, and also UGC sponsored national workshop on life work and leadership organization, participation organized by Department of Commerce, University of Madras, and also many national seminars, international, national workshops, conferences, nearly some 41 international conferences, and also many submits, nearly 5 submits, and also published many books. And she was a review member for the publications and also for journals. Even she has given some radio talks on cyber attacks. To name a few, cyber attacks and countermeasures in Air Chennai on 14/9/2016 and 17/9/2016, and also cyber crime prevention in FM radio December 2016, cyber security Air Chennai in January 2017, on security hackers in August 2018. And also she has visited many countries and many foreign labs, and she has done many presentations there. Welcome, ma'am, for the session. Welcome, ma'am. You can start your session now.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. So, a very good afternoon to all of you, those participants who are here. It is indeed a pleasure for me to be a part of this program. And before I start off with the new upcoming area of IoT forensics, I would like you all to see a small video clipping which is about around 5 minutes before we move on to the actual presentation. So you just, one of you just tell me whether you are able to view the video once I start presenting. Okay. Yeah. Are you able to see my
Yes.
present video?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It's visible
Yeah.
now.
This is for small duration. Don't worry about the sound. You can watch it, and you'll be able to understand just for 5 minutes. So how did you like it? Basically, technology is very fascinating, and I think almost most of the things have already come into our country. So it is not going to be very far off that everything is going to be connected, and our lives is going to be simplified by all these IoT devices which are going to be connected. So what is the challenge that is going to come in front of us? Day by day we are having new devices are coming up, and we are having new technology and new connectivity, so a lot of things are happening around us. So okay, it is well and good for us to have all these devices and stay make our lives simpler. But there is a big challenge. Already we are using the computer systems, we are using the network, and we are using various devices. And not only that, we are staying connected 24 by 7, 365 days, and that is not enough. And we need more and more new devices. It can be a wearable, it can be a Google Glass, or any other form of new devices. Today we can control our air conditioner system with our mobile phones. We can switch on and off our motors by using our mobile phones. So a lot of things that we can do. But almost, as you have seen, most of the devices are staying connected, are going to communicate to devices. That is what is called the Internet of Things, right? So all these devices are going to be connected, and they are going to send messages in the form of SMS to our mobile phones, and they are going to be crucial evidence in many of the cases, especially when everyone is going to use all these remotely. It is possible for us, even before coming to our house, we can switch on our AC through our mobile phones and keep the temperature as and how we desire it. So all these things are possible. So there is a wide scope, a new avenue is there in developing these IoT devices. And what is the purpose for us to talk about IoT today is, what are the challenges that are there? How can we do forensics if something happens? And there is a lot of issues and challenges with respect to the IoT devices. Lot of things needs to be considered. So now moving on to the presentation, I'll just start my presentation. You just tell me whether you are able to view it. Okay. So there is an increasing need for us to focus on the methods of how we have to do any kind of analysis, especially when we are dealing with these devices, IoT devices. Huge number of devices are there, and we have to face a lot of issues. So moving on to the presentation, you just tell me whether you are able to the presentation.
Yes, ma'am, it is visible.
Okay. Slideshow view is there?
Yes, ma'am.
Slideshow?
No, ma'am, it's not slideshow. It's not there in the slideshow mode.
You have to play in
Okay,
slideshow.
okay. Now in slideshow mode. Is it now in slideshow?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello? Huh? Yeah, we're going to track any digital forensic trail left behind in all these Internet of Things. Big challenge. So in order to understand the digital forensic of IoT devices, we need to understand what things that are there. So if you think about this Internet of Things, they have emerged. You have seen in that video that your soil moisture temperature, your access to your house, your door, your lights, your refrigerator, everything is connected with your mobile phone. So it is a new paradigm and new technology that has come. And not only that, it is evolved instantly. There is a continuum of devices and also objects. And how is it communicating? They are always communicating via net, Wi-Fi or Zigbee. So it uses multiple modes of communication, a variety of modes of communications. Okay. Now, what are all the components of these devices? Basically, we have to understand the components of the all IoT devices comprise of a device hardware. Then you have a software. Then we have to deal with the communication, how it's communicated, and then connected to the cloud platform. Already, we have migrated to cloud. So suppose you are using an Alexa, you connect with your Wi-Fi and you have a application which is there in the cloud, and so you have a range of components, hardware devices, software devices, communication methods, and cloud platform, cloud applications. So various components are there. So like unlike the traditional forensic, suppose you are doing a on a disk or a laptop or a desktop, what you will do is you will do an analysis on the hard disk, right? Then how about these devices? There are various angles or various sources from which you need to extract the information. That's a big challenge. So if you see the application IoT devices, it can be a home automation IoT device or an industrial IoT device, IIoT, it is called fitness IoT devices. And then a building Internet of Things, you have building automation system these days. Systems, the entire building is connected with the Wi-Fi, and each and house is having an Alexa, and they can switch on their TV or their fan or whatever it is. So everything is connected. And not only that, we have IoT, which takes care of the irrigation and other things. Then you have Internet of Things is going to be connected. So you have IoE. These are all the new terminologies that are devices. And then where do you find the applications of all these devices? As we have said, life has been simplified with all these IoT devices. So anything you say comes under the purview of IoT devices, be it a smart home, smart cities, smart grids, smart farm retail, smart supply chain, industrial internet, healthcare, wearables, all these things. Not limited to these anymore. Each and every day it is evolving, and it finds its application in many of these avenues. Then, what about the interfaces? See, we saw where a refrigerator is sending a message to the mobile phone, like the door is open. Like, so, what do we do? How do we see in a hard disk? You can dismount the hard disk, do the analysis on the this IoT device. There are very components, sensors or internet connectivity, memory interfaces, storage interfaces, audio interfaces. There are very many things that are being taken care of by all these devices. So they are also multifold. Just like all those devices, the many devices are there with the IoT devices. Then if you see the building block of IoT system, you have the IoT device, you have the infrastructure for that, you have the services and the application and the interface to other services, which can be organized into 4 layers. So let us see what are these 4 layers. It can be a sensing layer, it can be a networking layer, or it can be a service layer or application layer interface. Okay. So, so you have multiple use of all these layers, and different protocols are there for communicating with the other devices, and also with the cloud and the cloud applications. So holistic approach is the need of the hour when we are doing an IoT forensics. So here if you see, you have various devices. It can be like RFID readers, which is used in warehouses and all that. Intelligent sensors are there. Then you have WSNs or BLE device. From all these things, you will have to do the data being sensed and acquired using certain protocols. Then it comes through the network layer into the internet cloud, and then there are services implementation. Various there are services are included, and there is a service repository, and then various interface layers, as we have seen, application front end. It can be an interface or application API. So this is the general IoT architecture. So where do we start the forensics from? Question or a challenge for us. So that is what we are talking about this upcoming area. So there are protocols are being used. Link layer, network layer protocols, internet protocol, transport layer protocols, application layer protocols. There are protocols are there, and there are some vulnerabilities. These vulnerabilities will be targeted by the attackers, and because of that, there can be a crime that can be happening. It can be a denial of service, or stealing of information, or any real control system, and all those stuff can happen. So in that case, if something happens, how do we go? Where do we start? Or the challenge that is there in front of us. So now, what are the functional blocks? We have seen it is then management, then you have security, then you have applications. So all these things, devices, what does device do? It provides a function as sensing or monitoring and control. Communication protocol services, various device control services and discovery, all these things are taken care of. The management is used to monitor the complete IoT system. You can have a control unit or something like that. Then security even as and when they start designing, and there should be authentication. It can be authorization and security functions. Privacy concerns are also there in IoT devices when exploited. Then you have applications. So what does that do? It provides an interface to the user to view and the data that is getting processed. So you have a functional blocks in the design of the IoT devices. Okay, different communication models. So this is between like a client and the server. It uses sources for a request and response model, and then you have connectivity among the publisher, broker, and consumer. Something called as publishing model. Then there is something called push and pull queue model. Then you have connectivity among the client and the server. Exclusive pairing. We have seen pairing. Just even in a mobile phone, we have pairing of devices. So you have different models with respect to communication that needs to go off or have an idea about all that. What kind of things are there? Then attack happens, we should think about security. Prevention is better than cure. So even while designing any IoT devices or any over the IoT devices and appliances, they should think about IoT security. So there is a terminology in development. You have a development team, you have an operation team, so they do use each other. So new coinage of SecDevOps, that is security in both development and operations. They should go hand in hand, all the three of together. So IoT security is very, very important. And unsecured access, I would attractive backdoor to otherwise secured enterprises. Suppose you have some some vulnerability, and the attacker will be exploiting this vulnerability. That will be a good entry point into the organization network. Organization can have many other security features, but they failed to think about the IoT devices which is connected to their Wi-Fi, organizational Wi-Fi. That will be a point for the attacker. So that is a big, forensic challenge that needs to be taken care of. Then the need of the hour is to have an IoT device management plan. There are multiple devices are connected. You need to have a management platform. Otherwise, it will be difficult for us to where to start will be a big question. Then efficiently and securely deploy, connect and maintain the range of IoT. As I told you, there is a building or automation system which is being controlled and connected to the IoT devices. Then if there is an attack on the building, then can be at stake. So we need to take precautionary measures in building security even we are designing the IoT devices. Both software as well as hardware security is very, very important. And then what are all the attacks that are happening? There is something called as node tampering attack. You have a node and that can be tampered, and then you have denial of service or denial of devices attack, buffer overflow attack, or SQL injection can happen. These are some of the attacks that are happening general purpose computing system as well. The more number of people will be using all these devices. So once if they get access into all these devices, multiple devices can be compromised. So where do we start? Investigation is a big question. Then why do attackers target these devices? Because they have weak password, lack of encryption, backdoors. It is possible for them to implant backdoors or any malicious program that can target all these IoT devices. Now, 10 things that you should know about any IoT attack. So first is what is IoT? Then how it happen? Second one will be what is the problem? What kind of exploit was happening? And then third, how did this actually happen? Fourth will be do I need an IoT device? It will be a question. So this is a new problem. Be compromised, and so because you will have issues, multiple users can be affected. And how far does it go? How do you do the analysis on that? And then can't this internet and stop any attacks of this kind is another one thing that we need to think. What can I do to stop this? Preventive measures. What are the preventive measures? We are talking about smart cities, smart parking lots, even before installation of all these devices in the appropriate places. That's a big question. What can companies do to secure? How can they and prevent themselves from getting targeted? So everything as you have seen, people are going around with data. So we are in the data driven society these days. So lot of data will be walking along. So it is a challenge for us to recover all these information. It will be a big challenge for doing an IoT forensics. Then what traditional digital forensics, you have certain best practices. There are some guidelines which are given by many. For example, you have IOC, International Organization for Computer Evidence. Then you have HT's, High Technology Investigation, Crime Investigation Agency. Then you have a scientific working group on digital evidence. You have digital forensic workshop which is being said every year. You have a website called DFRWS where you can get some resources, and then you some best practices and guidelines which are being given by this NIST, National Standards and Technology. So there are many procedures that needs to be followed. If the procedure followed in a proper way, then there will be a lapse in the analysis of the digital evidence or the digital forensic process as such. So generally, we have something called, we acquire the data. Suppose if it is a hard disk, you do an imaging process, do take a forensic copy, and using some popular tools like EnCase or Forensic Toolkit or open source like you have Autopsy and Sleuthkit. There are many such tools are there, using which you will be able to do the analysis on the disk, or be it any other external storage device, or it can be a mobile phone as well. There are multi number of so forensic software tools. For example, you have Cellbrite, you have then you have Chinese, for Chinese mobile you have a text. Then there are multiple equipments or instruments, both hardware as well as software. Paragon device seizure is one from the mobile phone. Then you have Belcosoft evidence analyzer, that is for hard disk, and so you have multiple tools. The first and foremost will be acquisition of the data, and also we have some integrity. That means we have to take something called as a hash value, which will be fingerprint of that particular device. So even if there is a tampering, a small full stop or a comma is made, then you will change in a big way. So data integrity and tamper evident is the word when we are using the conventional forensic acquisition method. Then the second process, you have multiple tools as I mentioned. The examination process, you examine the forensic imaged copy of the hard disk, which is a sterile new hard disk where data will be transferred. There is always a difference between a backup and the forensic copy. Backup will be copying only the active files, whereas a forensic image will be having all information about deleted information, and also some information about the overwritten data, partial information, fragment of information or documents that are there. All these things can be checked in the examination process. Part involves the extraction of the evidence, recovery data, and reconstructing the data and interpreting and presenting in the court in a legible manner. So that is very, very important. And then documenting all the findings of the case needs to be documented at all stages, so that when you prepare the report, it is going to be based on the findings. So you will have to document everything, right from the day you receive the case. For example, a single case can have multiple a laptop or a hard disk or mobile phone or whatever, everything has to be labeled and tagged, and a photography should be done, and then the analysis taken. The whole process of documentation right from the day you acquire the device, for the case is being disposed of, or till it is being tried in the higher court, till such time you have to maintain documentation, and the entire process of documentation is called as chain of custody. It's very, very important. So in any only digital forensic, even in conventional forensics, you have the chain of custody. The same thing applies for digital and also to the IoT forensics. Suppose if you want to know forensics versus IoT forensics, so it can be based on factors like mechanism, data source, data instance, scalability, real-time analysis, data privacy. So here the first part, it is talking about the traditional digital forensics. Mechanism check marking or heuristic based, and data source can be traffic, then metadata information. Metadata information is very, very important for forensics. It is nothing but data about data. Suppose you, the file will have the contents within, but when it was created, where it was created, whether it was created in the system or whether it was downloaded from the LAN computer or from the internet, so on and so forth. Also about the metadata or the data about a particular file. Then you have something called data instance. So what is this? You have a packet header. You have multiple protocols, and each and everything is going in the one computer to another. So you have a packet header. That is, it can be an IP header, ICMP header, TCP header. Then you have packet payload. So what is the payload that is there in the packet? How is it flowing? What are all the network nodes through? Well, these things are talking about the data instance. Then scalability. What are the elements? How it is scaled? How many hosts are there? Several terabytes of data are for us to process several terabytes of data. Then real-time analysis is very, very difficult because constantly changing, and then it is resource demanding. And then when you talk about privacy, because once you do the imaging, the entire contents of this will be visible to the forensic examiner. Okay, only it is under his priority. He can look only into the the crime that is that has happened using this device, taken to any private information that is there in a particular case. Then this is for the same for the same list of mechanism for IoT. How is it going to be applied? A mechanism, if you think, it can be an application or it can be device logic, and then you will have to think about the finite state machine. Then data source can be data link. It can be using Zigbee protocol, T, or whatever it is. Device specific metadata. Each and every device is generating logs, it's generating metadata data. So what are the traces that are there? So all these things will be giving us a clue about the source. Then we have IoT cloud application. So here again, what is the metadata that is there? Then about the data instance, you have a list of things. We have seen physical link, IP header, payloads, flows, IoT gateways. Again, real-time analysis, it demands logical and physical presence. In with respect to IoT devices, we have little or no privacy here because of be available for us to view. So there is a you can compare versus the IoT forensics. So When we are talking about IoT forensics, we can think about, three layers. First of all, you will have to identify the device and do forensics on the edge device, whichever is the endpoint. So the device is next. It can be an Android, be a GPS device. Even we have the cars are having infotainment facilities. These are all some embedded system is there and is communicating through the your mobile phone. So you will have to find all these end devices. The second thing, communicate in real time, processing the data. So how is it going to happen? It is going to happen through the network. So you have to analyze the network for what is being communicating from the device to the server. And next will be, it will be communicating to the cloud applications. So a lot of data will be there. Almost we can think of as a big data. We will have to acquire evidence from all these sources. So doing disk forensics, different, and doing an IoT forensics, you will have to take into account the comprehensive information there in all these three layers, we can call it. So cloud is going to be a big challenge because we don't know the we will not be having access to do the analysis on the cloud. So whatever the communication that is left on the device, we will be able to do. If you have do an analysis on the cloud, then we need to have an agreement with the cloud service provider in order to process their data. Suppose we can think of even a WhatsApp message, okay, digital forensic, where we have to the evidence will be there from the device which can be collected from the device. But if you want to know the logs, if you're in your system or the device you have deleted the message, if you want to know the logs, you have to write to the WhatsApp, get the logs from them, and it is going to be a big tedious task for us. You won't get it within the period of time. Everyone will have the access to get the information from the server. So it is going to be only through the agencies will be having the they will be having, or they will be having procuring the information from all these places. Then there are many state-of-art IoT forensic frameworks that have come up recently. So we are having many traditional digital forensic. We are having many procedures which are given by the agencies which I have mentioned. Now, frameworks for digital forensics on IoT devices. So you have DF, which is digital forensic investigation frame. Then you have cloud centric framework for isolating the big data, especially to acquire the evidences from the cloud, and for acquisition from the Internet of Things, FSAIoT it is called. And then ISAC, or a forensic state acquisition controller. So control devices, how do you acquire the information from? Various other frameworks like for acquisition IoT data. Then most of the IoT devices are being supported by fog computing, which is nothing but computing. So fog-based IoT forensic frameworks also researchers have proposed. Then you have FIOT, that is Forensic Investigation Framework for IoT using public digital ledgers. There are information you can find it, papers are available in internet. But these are all the procedures that needs to be followed when we are dealing with any IoT devices to do a forensics on all these devices. Then you have something called IFDFIF, that is Integrated Digital Investigation Framework. So these are all some of the examples of state-of-art for IoT forensic framework. What are all the challenges to today you can control, as I said, even by your coming in your car, you can switch on or switch off your air conditioning machine, or this in thermostat, or your boilers or whatever it is. So there is a complexity and diversity of all these devices itself is a big challenge. Then, as I told you, cloud forensics is again a big challenge, because we need the support of the cloud service to the analysis there. Right. Next one, these devices are very small. For example, you can think about the wearables. It can be, Fitbit, or you have Apple iWatch or something like that. These are having
Kala ma'am. Kala ma'am?
மேம் கலா மேம் மீட்டிங்ல இல்ல மேம், அவங்க சிஎஸ் லெஃப்ட்னு சொல்லி காமிச்சது.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am. I think there is a network issue.
okay, I'll check, sir. Raja sir.
Ma'am?
சார் கூகுள் கிளாஸ் ரூம் ஜாயின் பண்றது எல்லாருமே ப்ராப்ளம் சொல்றாங்க. பேசிட்டு மேம் வந்துருவாங்க.
இல்ல, already 105 participants are there, ma'am.
இல்லையே. Participants many are having some problem in joining your Google Classroom, no? If anyone is having any doubt, please contact Raja sir.
Okay, ma'am. I will share the code again in the group, ma'am.
Okay. Sir,
I will share the code.
Okay, okay.
So those who have problem joining the Google Classroom, I will post the code. You just follow it.
Raja sir, have you joined in laptop or mobile?
No, ma'am, I'm using my mobile, ma'am. I don't have a laptop. Why, ma'am?
Yes, sir, if possible, just show them how to join
Google
the
Classroom.
procedure.
1 second, ma'am. I'll share the Google Classroom, ma'am.
Okay, okay, okay.
Sorry that there was some technical issue. The line got cut. So can you missed it out? Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Where did you miss it out?
Ma'am, screen is actually you are sharing the screen, but the PPT is not visible. Now PPT is visible, ma'am.
Right. Where did you the connection got lost?
Ma'am, the slide number 30. From here onwards, you can start, ma'am.
From 30. Okay. Now you are able to see?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, yeah. Interestingly, you have this Xiaomi, vacuum cleaner, which has got more powerful than hardware and your smartphones. So it is having some three processors, one of which is a quad core. So what did this or the researchers, they wanted to point out whether there is any security flaw in this vacuum cleaner. Tried initially with connecting with it through the USB port. So they couldn't any connectivity. So then what they did is they tried with some other kind of because Xiaomi has already secured it an authentication, they couldn't go inside. Now what they did is they actually disassembled this robo and then tried for various serial ports to that motherboard. This was unsuccessful, they couldn't do it. And then what they did was they tried some aluminum foil was used to short circuit some tiny contacts in the connecting processor, especially that is connecting to the motherboard. Is the processor to enter into a special mode allowing the reading. So it allows the reading even information to the memory directly through the USB connection. So these things are possible. The problem is here you need to have a physical particular device, otherwise it will not be possible for them to use the aluminum foil to short circuit the contact. One kind of an attack where if you have a physical access, it is possible for you to do the kind of attacks in this. Then the next part of refrigerator and that short film I showed you, you can see it sends notification that the door has not been closed like that. So it is having some smart connectivity. What did this team of hackers they did was they found a vulnerability in this Samsung smart fridge which was exploited, and using that they launched a man-in-the-middle attack and they were able to steal the Gmail users' login credential. It's very your investigation and such kind of an attack happens. So hackers from the security company testing, you people who do the penetration testing, even before somebody attacks your system, there will be teams penetration testing to test their own environment whether they are secure or not. So all those results they they actually YouTube videos are available. See, DEFCON security conference every now and then they conduct conference and it will be launched in the YouTube. So in this particular smart refrigerator, it was having some integration to the user's Gmail its display. So what happened is Samsung has implemented SSL to secure the Gmail integration, but the hackers found the device does not validate the SSL certificate. So it opened up an avenue for the hackers to access the network, monitor the activity for the username and password, and use the link to connect to Gmail. It's a big threat, is it not? So of course, once they demonstrated it, it was all fixed. Before using, just like that, I used to say my students, always watch for the traffic signal. If it is green, then you can go. If it is amber, you have to stop and red, you should never go. Like that, if you have the idea of how to use this, then you can for it. You have to think about security, you have to think about privacy and all those stuff when you're using all this. Otherwise, if you are using it very easily, like mornings they were the social attacks, which can be, by talking to you, people can actually out of you, they can compromise your devices. It's a big risk, is it not? So how do you extract the evidence out of a smart switch? Where do you connect the device to extract? Which software tool you will be using? Similarly, you have Amazon Alexa. Most of us are using Alexa voice. We can switch on or switch off our fan or TV or whatever it is. Researchers, they found that there is a vulnerability, and this voice assistant gives access to the hackers. There was voice history and personal data that is associated with the Alexa account are being compromised. It was having a bug, tricking the Alexa user into clicking a malicious. That's what I was telling, today. Yesterday also I got one phishing mail. Okay, I knew by looking at the email, found out it looked so genuine, as if it was from my colleague. But looking at the email, something, I did not open up that mail. I rang up to her and found out she had not sent the mail to me. Okay, so when we are clicking any suspicious link before we are acting, so hackers will be able to exploit this, and this worked by the hackers. So by doing so, they have actually impersonated the user to access their audio recording. List of installed Alexa information, personal information, all these things are compromised. So this vulnerability was there in around 200 million devices worldwide. How many of them really know that their system, their devices are compromised? It's a big question. So, and then what Amazon was informed about this. They acknowledged that there is a vulnerability, but they denied that the hackers could have access bank information. That's what had actually happened. Then this is another one interesting thing demonstrated attackers. Like you have IoT bulbs, right? So and for this, what they have done is some persistent code exists launched on this, and then once they get access into one particular to the network, all the other bulbs in that particular area can be compromised by infection, and all the other lights could go on and off. For example, our souls, we have SOS mode. It goes into SOS mode. How did they do this? No, by what there you go and look for any access point, and then also war flying. Very interestingly, it has happened. So, a drone. Okay, a drone was attached to a particular device which had code, and that code, when it is going to the IoT lamp, Hue lamp, or the Hue bulb connected to the network, it is actually because of the proximity, it launched some attack on the Hue bulb. One was compromised, and subsequent Hue lamps which are connected to this was also exploited, and it was also compromised. Imagine if there is an organization, and if the entry point is this, they can very easily enter into the organizational network. So organization should some policy to restrict all these kinds of attacks, just not just not install IoT Hue lamps or something like that. So they were using the drone. Okay, so this is one scenario which can be thought of as as an example of forensic investigation. So what are the things you will have to think, do here? First and foremost, you have to find out what is the, then a drone was used, how did it move, whether it moved to this particular height, where this lamp was there, and whether the communication between the device which is code because of proximity communicated to the hue bulb, that has to be established. And then how hue lamps were affected, and whether it is possible for that attacker to go into the organization. All these things needs to be established in order to have the overall understanding of this particular artifacts that are there in each and every device. First, we have to understand the device, then we have to see what are all the protocols that are there, what communication is happening, and what are the packets that are to and from, and how we can do the reconstruction that this indeed has happened. It is a simple demonstration of a particular attack that was launched on a hue bulb. Okay, there can be multiple attacks which can be even more grievous, so that will be very difficult for us to. Then on the drone, if you think about the drone, you have an external memory card, you have an internal memory card, you have memory card internal as well as external. Then you have a tablet or a mobile phone that needs to communicate with this to control. All these things are evidences that needs to be extracted from the. Okay, that is one part. Then there is a tool which actually this of the international conference. The data was taken from the drone. Data was taken just to have an idea of how it can. So it is drop. Drop is a tool, and it is a drone open source parser. That is what is drop. It is basically a Python script, and then there is another one thing which on. So drone is having a particular way of storing the data in the device. So Bitcoin is a tool which can convert the DAT file into a CSV or text, and then log it was flying, where time it flies, at what height, latitude, longitude. All these things are there and can be converted into the CSV, TXT, log. ML is the thing which can be used with Google to find out the location information. It's a markup language. So there were sample data that was there about this particular Phantom 3 drone. And so in order to prove that this drone was flying at this particular height and it was trying to communicate with the hue lamp, so the message was sent to this hue lamp. There it was controlling all the other devices. So all these things could be done. So you need to understanding of how you can extract all this. So in this particular thing, the information from the drone converted into KML file. So it will be having latitude and longitude. So when you place this latitude and longitude in Google Earth as a KML file, thing will be given in the form of a map. It was flying in this particular area at this particular latitude and longitude. It was going circling this particular lamp. So it is communicated with that lamp by using such and such, and it is compromised attack. So here what we are doing, we have to extract the evidence from the drone. It can be multiple memory cards and other SD cards, a mobile or a tablet PC or whatever it is, and then it can be from the hue lamp itself which is connected, and also the network communities should be taken into account just to find out whether this link is there or not, or this attack has taken or not. Okay, see here is an example of the DATCON tool where you upload your data, or See, in drone, you will have some flight data. There will be multiple data. Will be like fly 1, fly 2, flight 3, like that. It will DAT file. So when you upload this DAT file onto this DATCon tool, you can convert it into KS as I have shown here, right? Here I have uploaded KML, and this has GPS coordinates. So when you say you can view it, you place it in this particular Google Earth, and then you will be able to know which location that was there. Okay, you will also be where are the paths that it has flight. Just by analyzing the DAT file, you will be able to know that these are the locations where it was flying. So here was affected, like that. So it is one of the device. From there you get the evidence, and then from the lab you have to get the evidence. So so how did this happen? How did this particular lamp on and off because of this proximity kind of an attack? Basically, there were bugs. So because of the bug, they tried. They were using some kind of symmetric entity which was shared again among many devices. So when one thing is affected, all the other affected. So the firmware update process, that is also one of the thing. Automatically even our firmware updates. If you're not doing updates, then there will be vulnerabilities that are causing some kind of an attack. Then hardware that is vulnerable to side channel attack. In the sense, by way of playing around with the power, you can launch a side channel attack. It can be even any such kind of a hue bulb, or it can be as big as an embedded system as well. So side channel attack can be caused because of the bugs, and then errors in implementation of this prevent long range takeover attack. So the implementation of protocols is also very important, and because of some bugs in the implementation. Then here is another one example. Are you able to see anyone? Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, here is the picture. It is actually a data set that is created by the researchers. Just to give you an example of how attacks can happen. Here they have created one machine. You can see 192. This is one machine. They have created multiple, bot, and the Linux for this. They are having some 100.150, 149, 148 and others which are having bots. Okay, then here you have another one computer which is 6, which is Windows 7. Here if you see, you have a Ubuntu system. Then here you have some Metapreter. You would have heard, I think some of you would have heard about Metapreter. Okay, so that one kind of thing. So all these things are attacking machine. This also communicates through the gateway. It is a Ubuntu goes to the monitor where the PF sensor, firewall are all there, and interfaces are all connected, and through that it goes through the switch to a VMware cluster, and then it goes through the call filter and then goes to the internet. Now we have to establish this is the way all attacks that are happening needs to be established. Then it is communicating devices that are there, applications that are there in the cloud. So you have to collect the network packet, you will have to analyze it, and also evidences from all these devices needs to be extracted to do a forensic analysis. It's a big challenge for us. We don't have a facility for doing research. So the need of the hour is to create a data set for doing research. That's very, very important. We don't have the phase of research. So this is one data set which are being given by Australian I forgot the name, UNSW University. They have given this IoT data set which is available. Anybody can use it. Yeah. Hello. Any problem? Time is up, huh?
No, ma'am, 2 minutes more.
Yeah, I can finish it off. Almost I'm done.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So this is one kind of a setup where you can think of all the possible avenues for extraction. You have a computer, you have you also have the firewall from which logs can be extracted, and also the cloud application from where you will have to extract the information. Possibly yeah, this is the people who have actually generated this. I want to give the credit. Bought data set for IoT things. Okay. Are having some purposefully they have created some DOS attacks, and OS and service scan, key logging, data exfiltration, and other protocol kinds of they have done using this particular setup, and based on which they have found out what are the things that they can use all these data sets for analysis. Right. So basically, I'm talking about all this, various sources from where you will have to extract the evidence. In this particular data set, they have artificial intelligence and machine learning to predict what kind of an attack that is happening. Right. So that is why I'm telling these things. And then, of course, this is an output of Wireshark where you can find out any kind of protocol analysis you can do. Another one data given is NB15 data set, basically for network intrusion detection system. And again, for Wireshark can be used for acquiring the network packet information where you can find out what kind of thing that the attacker is trying to do. All this stuff you can find out, and any specifically in order to do an IoT forensic, this is the last slide. I want to conclude with this. Like when you're doing an IoT forensics, you will have to think about the acquisition of data. Number one. Number two, we have to get the network related data. And number two, get the cloud information, especially the cloud applications that are being devices. So it is a comprehensive thing, just not by doing one device. It is going to be, I think, since I have done many in disk forensics as well as mobile forensics, it is comparatively easy for us to do forensics. Mobile phone, although it seems to be easy, it is very, very challenging because every day you have new models. There are a lot of applications that are coming up. So again, there is a challenge. We need tool updation and looking into the future, it's a big challenge. Tomorrow we are going to have smart TVs, refrigerator, and smart cities, everything smart. So the challenge is, how are we going to do all this? Even before we understand all this, we are already moving to the smart cities, laying off or installation. Even in our own, if some places are having smart parking system or smart cities or particular area where you have commercials, they are converting everything into smart. There's a big challenge that is there in front. Computer forensic scientists and all of us, we need to coordinate and that to have some kind of a proactive approach in order to do the analysis, forensic analysis in a sound way that is legally acceptable in the court of law. So it's very, very important. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. If you have any questions, I can take it. Any questions? And it's almost lunchtime and
Hello,
most
ma'am.
of you rained out from morning talking about security and social engineering and IoT forensics. So it will be.
Hello, ma'am.
Madam, I have one question.
Yeah.
Madam, you're talking about
Yeah, I
cyber
have a
forensics.
question.
Yeah.
If anything unwanted happened, okay, either by any method they're doing it using IT, IoT to affecting a common people, whether the common people want to prove in the court, that I have been suffered by these people, or we can able to inform the local level officers. There is a cyber law. Cyber department is a separate department. Is
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
In this,
You have the cyber law. What you have linked to the cyber crime cell, which is near, and they will take up the initiation process, and they will go and find out what is what and what are the devices that is there. Okay, so you after that they seize those equipments. If it is possible, they will seize the equipment or the device and then hand it
yes, madam. Yes, madam. Tell me.
over. Yeah, that's a process. They will be actually doing the analysis and giving. So far, we don't have, there are certain agencies like CERT, emergency team, who will be taking care of the attacks which are there coming up, warning the people and all that. So we are not doing a network level analysis so far. Live analysis or cloud analysis, we don't have resources. People in the industries are there. They will be looking after their own organizational teams will be there. Nowadays, if you think you have cyber team in the banks, in the banks and other financial sectors, so they have their own teams nowadays to upskill the law enforcement and the forensic people is a need of the hour.
Yes, madam. Thank you. Thank you very much, madam.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I got a question. Like you talked about IoT
Yeah.
bot data sheet by UNSW. So whether that data
Yeah.
sheet is openly available so that we can do some experiments.
Yeah, it's openly available. It's openly available. If you want, you give me you can send me. I'll leave my email ID. I can send you the link. So is this? So I can share.
Yeah, thank you, madam.
I'll share you the link so that you can download. But it is a very huge data. Almost 10 GB of data is there in that particular thing. It's all in VMware and other things. So it's very interesting and challenging to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Link here? No. I am using a different computer. I'll definitely give you in this email ID. I'll just share it with you, or I will give it to ma'am.
Ma'am, I'll share. Ma'am, this is Haja Mohammed ma'am from St. Joseph's. I'll share my mail ID, ma'am. You just forward the content to me. I will share with the participants.
I think, ma'am, Dr. Vali, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hello. If you can collect the, in the participants' email ID. So commonly, I will send it to one place where you can use it for research. It's very
ma'am.
interesting,
Okay, ma'am.
challenging.
Okay, ma'am. Actually, we will
I can
share
share
it
it
the
with
Google Classroom, ma'am. We have created a classroom for these participants. We
Yeah.
will share.
Yeah, no
Okay,
problem.
okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Hello.
So any other question? Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, ma'am. You were talking about this forensic copy and backup, where you said backup we have only the
Yeah.
active data, but whereas forensic copy we
Yeah.
can even retrieve the data which has been deleted by us.
Yeah.
So it is for a
Definitely.
particular
I have
timeline or
no. Unless and
okay.
otherwise the data is, even if you're for many times, they still will be able to track either in full or in partial. Either in full or in upon the usage of that particular hard disk. The things will be remaining there as it is there.
Okay, ma'am. And is there
Usage
any command line for creating that
described in
copy?
Pardon?
Can we do that on our
Timeline.
personal computer or no? Creating of that forensic copy.
No, basically, for practice purpose, you can own, or if you want to do real time, proceeding, then you should be a digital forensic professional.
Okay.
Probably you should, if you are working in the forensic, able to do, or if you are a part of the digital forensic team in any organization, you will still be able to do. You should know the procedure and you should know the tools and the techniques.
Okay. So this
One
copy is
thing I will want to, one thing I want to tell you is just the operation of tool. I bet you can learn it 3 hours. How the tool works. Okay, 3 or 4 hours. But where to find what things that you need to do, that requires some training and experience. That experience will come by practice. Do it on your own. There are like when I started my career, there were no such huge amount of information that is available. You can today you have videos are there, hackathon videos are there. You have lot of science websites. So they are giving tutorials are there. It is very easy for you to practice. You can take up any open source tool like autopsy and analysis. Step by step procedure, they teach you. It's very for you to learn. Only if you want to go in for a licensed or proprietary software, then you need a little bit of training. It's not going to be difficult. Only practice. Constant practice is enough for you to learn all.
okay. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes.
Ma'am, am I audible, ma'am?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Ma'am, these forensic, cyber forensics and all other things, can we use it as you said, tools are free, we have a free available sources. So can we we can learn and we can teach to our students?
Definitely you can teach. No issues. There are open source tools are there. There are trial versions are there. You can all these things to students and you can also learn. There is no problem. Only if you want to go and give it a testimony in the court, you need a license or proprietary software. Of course, trial versions and all these will have limited this thing, but still for learning purpose, they are good, really good.
Okay, ma'am.
Are very good. You can give us a practice session to the students.
Okay.
There are some tools
Thank
now.
you, ma'am. Okay.
Any more queries?
But we should search the tool as respective forensic tool, or it's common for all.
No. Have one mobile phone forensic will not talk with your disk forensic tool. So you need to have a collection of tools, and the same tool you need not depend on tools in order to cross verify. Always it is better to have multiple tools with you.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am,
One tool is not a panacea.
Okay. Ma'am, can we search in Google like that, or we have a specific tool, ma'am? If you know, you can share, ma'am, if it's possible.
Yeah, a lot of certificate courses are there, but very expensive the certifications are there. Modules only they have. Once you complete the module, it will expire in 3 years. Again, with technology is evolving, you can't rely upon your certificate lifelong. Every 3 years you will have to renew your license. And also the product interface will change, everything will change, the functionality will be enhanced. It will, it is not going to be. That is why I say you will have to understand the concept. You will know how a file system works. Windows has NTFS file system, Linux has ext and HFS for Mac and all that. In and out of about the how the files are, what happens if a file is deleted, what happens if my disk is formatted, what happens if it is overwritten. All these concepts are very strong. In Windows we have registry. How do you do an analysis on the registry? So you have a range of that should know before jumping into the tool. That's what I said. The operation of the tool is no longer within a short span of time you'll be able to understand. But where to locate, you need to do a lot of research. And where it is there, all these things you need to have an understanding.
Okay.
Balli ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any question questions or we can?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Is there any other questions, or can we call it?
Participants, any query? Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for your informative session. Thanks a lot.
Ma'am?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Ma'am? Excuse me, ma'am. Ma'am. And can you share your presentation, ma'am, so that I can share with the participants? I will post my mail ID, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
You share it with me.
Okay, ma'am. I will share my mail ID, ma'am. Just now in the chat box.
Chat box, huh? Send it to my
Yes,
mail.
Ma'am. No problem. Okay, ma'am.
Ma'am, you take care of.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Bye.
Participants, the next session will be starting at 2:30. Please join us 5 minutes before.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.